A few months ago, a pretty insane discovery was found on Black Ops 2 Zombies. What ended up being found technically invalidates every Easter egg speedrun world record on the game, Slushy's Origins record, my mob world record, and even Frothy's Transit world record. Nobody has talked about this outside of the immediate speedrunning community, so I'm here to share what happened with everyone. Basically, Frothy Milkshake, the Transit speedrun world record holder, noticed that in the game code, the FOV value that you set in-game not only changes your field of view, but it affects something else much more important. It affects how zombies despawn. Basically, zombies have a high chance of despawning if they're far away and you aren't looking in their general direction. That's why in most BO2 speedruns, you'll see the player looking in weird spots to try and keep the zombies in that area from despawning. This means that, in theory, with higher FOV, it's easier to keep zombies from despawning because your screen covers more area. And this was all just a theory until Frothy tested it in-game, confirming that's how it worked. As a casual player, this doesn't really mean that much, but for speedruns and in any competitive setting, it does. Most Black Ops 2 Easter eggs require you to fill a soul box with zombie kills, and to be as fast as possible, you often have to go do other things while filling the soul box. That's just one example of many, but this just means that it's optimal to play at the highest possible FOV in most speedruns. The issue is deciding what actually is the highest FOV. For console players, this is obviously an issue because they can't change their FOV from the default of 75, which puts console players at a disadvantage. But console players can't really compete with PC players anyway for other reasons. The bigger issue is actually pretty weird. It's Plutonium. If you don't already know, almost every Black Ops 2 player plays on Plutonium. It's a client that runs Black Ops 2 better than Steam in almost every way. It even has some extra customizability like the FOV slider that goes up to 120 instead of Steam's 90, and even has an FOV scale which lets you further crank it up. This is a big problem, because obviously Plutonium isn't an official version of Black Ops 2, and since FOV now has a much bigger impact than we thought by directly changing how despawns work, it shouldn't be allowed to play higher than 90 FOV, the official highest value on the vanilla Steam version. But all the current world records are played on over 90 FOV because it's just better to be able to see more on your screen, and it's been allowed on ZWR, so there was a pretty big debate on what to do about this. There are two main sides to the argument. Frothy Milkshake thinks that players should simply play on 90 FOV or under, since that's how the official vanilla Steam version works, and playing more than 90 FOV allows you to see more zombies on the screen than should be possible. And most of the community agrees that speedruns should be played as close to the vanilla game as possible. But in this case, most players actually argued against this and wanted a mod to be allowed that would let you increase your FOV to over 90 without increasing the value that messes with how despawns work. So it's a compromise between completely banning high FOV and just leaving things the way they are. The reason people want this mod to be allowed is simply because nobody wants to play on low FOV. It's less smooth, doesn't look good, and it's all around just better to see more around you. ZWR ended up allowing the FOV mod because that's what the majority wanted. So if someone wants to play on FOV higher than 90, they have to use a script to cap the zombie despawning function to 90 FOV. But all current records are grandfathered in and will stay on the leaderboard. So my mob record and Slushy's Origins, for example, will still be the official world records, despite players now having to deal with slightly more annoying despawners. And I still plan on beating my mob record again anyways, so hopefully that record won't be up there for much longer. My main issue with allowing the FOV mod is that allowing this mod sets a bad precedent for future issues, and it could easily end up being a slippery slope, like we've seen with the high round community, where they now vote on allowing things like RNG patches that give you any mystery box weapon first try, for example. This is a mod that changes how the game fundamentally works, and it should never be allowed on a main speedrunning leaderboard. And yet, it's allowed on all round speedruns. There isn't even an unpatched leaderboard on ZWR. If you watch any round speedrun world record on any game, they all mod the mystery box. Anyways, now back on track. This issue with the FOV only happened because of the Plutonium client. Plutonium has historically had so many differences with the vanilla game that mess with speedrunning. Like for example, a few years ago, old versions of Plutonium removed a line of code that makes the tank treads kick you off if you stand on them or mantle onto them.
When you jump on the tank treads, it would pull you down. So older version of Plutonium and Redacted had this, where you could just walk straight on the tank like that. Once again, this is not how the game is supposed to work. So Plutonium later updated this with a 4000 version, where the script was re-enabled. So as you can see, when you jump on the tank treads here, the game pulls you off. You cannot just sit on it. It is supposed to pull you off of it.
This meant that back then, nearly every PC player could hop on the tank using the treads, which is impossible. When Plutonium became aware of this and fixed it, Players used a patch to mimic this impossible effect. Now, many top Origins times on the leaderboard play with a broken tank that is much faster and easier to mantle onto. Another example of this is the network frame fix. Old versions of Plutonium had a broken function called wait_network_frame, and anything that called that function, like zombie spawns, the code flicker in Mob, the ending in Origins, and a bunch of other things, were all faster than the vanilla game. This is a huge issue because almost every PC speedrun is on Plutonium, and this led to a bunch of records being taken down from the leaderboards. Another thing that not many people know about is the movement speed issues that Plutonium has had, which is still an issue for speedruns today. Console Black Ops 1 and 2 have faster backwards and sideways movement speeds than on PC. Black Ops 2 console is 190 velocity forward, sideways, and backwards, so you move full speed in every direction. But when they ported the game to PC, the speed became full speed forward, 80% sideways, and 70% backwards. Old versions of Plutonium completely messed with the speeds and made it 100% forward, 100% sideways, and 80% backwards, which was never how the game worked. And speedruns used to be done on these old broken versions of Plutonium, where you literally just move faster. Most leaderboards allow a mod called a backspeed patch, which is a script placed into your game that lets you move on PC with the faster console movement speed. But this should not be allowed. You literally have to mod your game to have the console movement speed on PC. I'm extremely happy this patch is no longer allowed on Easter egg speedruns. I know some high rounders and challenge players like the backspeed patch, but it's almost unanimous at this point that Easter egg speedrunners don't want it allowed. Anyways, the main takeaway from everything I just said is that Plutonium was never an official version of the game, and has differences with the official vanilla PC version on Steam, even to this day. Plutonium's only allowed for speedruns because it's a safer and more optimized version to play on. Speedrunners these days, including me, want to stay as close to the vanilla game as possible for the main leaderboard. But we allow scripts, essentially mods, that aren't vanilla to be placed into the game, for permaperks and bank money. The justification for this is that everything we allow to be modded can all be done completely vanilla before loading into your game. You can grind all the permaperks back after every run, and refill the bank money yourself without the scripts. The scripts just save time outside of the game by doing what's already possible. Same goes for the fast restart feature. Even though it's not in the vanilla game, we allow it because it saves having to go back to lobby every reset. There are currently only 2 mods allowed that can actually affect the game in speedruns. One is custom textures. Most of the community disagrees with me on this, but I don't really think custom textures should be allowed in speedruns. Even though only HUD and gun textures are allowed to be changed now, I just don't like them out of pure principle that you're modding your game to change how it looks. The main reason it's allowed is just because people love using them. Another thing people argue though is that you're not actually editing the GSC code of the game, only texture files. The second mod allowed in your game is the timer. You might be thinking this doesn't do anything, it just times the speedrun for you, but it does more than that. I'm specifically talking about the auto splitter. You're allowed to set up auto splits so the game automatically splits for you at the perfect time after doing something. There are rules in place to prevent abuse of this, but only for very specific scenarios. And no matter when your timer auto splits, you have information to a perfectly precise degree that you wouldn't have without a mod. For example, when I ride the plane on Mob of the Dead in the speedrun, I have a perfect auto split, and I know that exactly 1 minute and 28 seconds later, the chairs will appear for me to interact with. So that's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about in this video. I mainly just wanted to talk about and share the FOV discovery with the despawns, but while I was at it, I couldn't help but mention lots of other important things going on in the Easter egg speedrunning. I hope that I taught you something, and thanks so much for watching.